Hey friends, welcome or welcome back. My name is Shannon, and today we are going to talk about reading through the USA. So I just posted a video about some books that I am going to read in preparation for a couple of trips to Europe that I'm taking in 2025. However, I also do a lot of domestic travel as well. And one of my bucket list goals is to visit all 50 states before I turn 50. I am currently 45, so I have just under 5 years to finish this goal. And technically it's 51 if I want to count Washington, D.C., but 50 before 50 sounds better. So I've visited only 18 states so far. I have 33 states to go. And like I said, just under 5 years to complete this. So in order to do that, I would have to visit 6 or 7 states a year to finish in time. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that, but I'm certainly going to try. One thing that I do to try to get as many states in as possible is when I travel for work, I will tack on a new state to visit in that time frame. For example, I was in Texas for work in December, so I headed out a couple days early and I went to Arizona. So that's one thing that I've done to try to get as many states as possible. But I might actually have to do some sort of epic road trip just to get through all of the states in time. So in connection to my goal of reaching all 50 states before I turn 50, I think I'm also going to try and read one book from each state. Either, the book can either be about the state or set in the state or something to that effect, so that I can be well-rounded with my travels. I'm already doing it for my international travel, as I mentioned in a previous video. So now I should do it for the United States. So today we are going to go over some of the books that I have chosen for states that I have already visited or states that I haven't visited. And my general rule is that I really want to own the book, and preferably one that I haven't read. I may not be able to follow these rules strictly, but we'll see. I do not have a selection for every state, and a lot can happen in 5 years. I can acquire new books, my mood is going to change, things happen, who the heck knows what's going to happen. Now, as I go through these books, I'm actually not going to give synopses because if I'm going to go through, 50 states, we're talking about a lot of books here. And I'm probably going to, if I'm still doing BookTube, I'll do a check-in every year. How many states have I visited? How many books have I read from these states? So we'll see. All right, so let's start with the states that I visited, beginning with Arizona. I just visited this in December. And the book that I chose for Arizona is Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. Now, I'm really unable to determine whether this is actually set in Arizona, but based upon, my limited research that I did, there is a portion of the book set in Arizona. So that's why I chose it, and it was already on my shelves. I didn't have any other book that I knew of set in Arizona. This also brings me to Cormac McCarthy. I drafted this list like months ago. And in the time period since I drafted this list and I'm filming this, there has been a little bit of a controversy with Cormac McCarthy. I have not quite decided whether I'm going to try and swap this out for something else due to this recent news about McCarthy and his relationship with a teenage girl when he was in his 40s. Unfortunately, I am not someone who can separate art with the artist. I do try. However, having relationships with underage girls to me is pretty serious, and I don't know if I can get over that. I have not decided. I don't know all the facts about this controversy. I have not really done much research on it. So for now, Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy is staying on my list until I can decide what to do about it. That being said, if you know of any good books set or about Arizona, let me know. And in the next couple of years, as I'm doing my travels and reading about all these states, maybe I come across it and pick it up and swap it out. Next is Connecticut, and I've chosen On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. I'm pretty sure that this is set in Connecticut, and I go to Connecticut all the time. My sister lives there. I, am very familiar with that state. Next is Florida, and I have chosen Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. I have never read this, and that is a classic book, and I do believe it is set in Florida. Next is Illinois. I have 3 options for Illinois, all set in Chicago, and Chicago, Illinois was what I visited when I went to Illinois. I have Hello Beautiful by Anne Napolitano. I'm already in the middle of this, actually. My mother wanted this book for Christmas, so I gave it to her for Christmas, and I had already had it on my shelves, so I've been reading it with her. So I'm halfway through it as of the time of filming. Next is Native Son by Richard Wright. And I am actually already planning on reading this in March for a reading challenge that I'm doing. It is a prompt for the Massachusetts Center for the Book Reading Challenge. So I'm already going to be reading this anyway. And then the last one that I chose was Sister Carrie by Theodore Dreiser. But I'm probably not going to use that for this prompt because I'm already reading the 2 other choices that I have for Illinois. Next, we have Louisiana. I have 2 options, both set in New Orleans, and New Orleans is where I did visit when I visited Louisiana. The first is The Awakening by Kate Chopin. That actually would be a reread for me, but it's been so long since I've read it, I've literally forgotten everything, so it would probably be like a new book to me. And the next would be The Goodness of St. Rocque by Alice Dunbar Nelson. I hope I'm saying that correctly, sorry. I've never read anything by Alice Dunbar Nelson, so that would be a new author for me. Next is Maine. I have 3 options for Maine. The Berry Pickers by Amanda Peters, Fire Exit by Morgan Talty, and The Guest Book by Sarah Blake. So it's just going to be whichever I get to first. I'm in Maine all the time. I was just in Maine in November. I go up there to ski, so I'm in Maine all the time. And those 3 books are on my shelves, and whichever one I get to first is what I'm going to choose. Next is Massachusetts. I live in Massachusetts, so I've read many books about Massachusetts, but for this challenge, I've chosen Banned in Boston, The Watch and Word Society's Crusade Against Books, Burlesque, and the Social Evil. And I've actually already read this, so I'm considering Massachusetts complete. I've read this. I've done a deep dive video on it. I'll link it, down below, up here, whatever, so you can check it out if you have not already seen that. Next is Montana. I have chosen The Fox and I, An Uncommon Friendship by Catherine Raven, or I Await the Devil's Coming by Mary MacLane. Both are nonfiction. And I saw Montana a couple of years ago, and so far, Montana is probably the most beautiful state that I have laid eyes on. But again, I haven't seen all the states yet, so who knows what's going to happen. The next 2 states that I've been to, I actually don't have any book selections for, so let me know if you have any selections for New Hampshire or New Jersey. Next is New York. Now, it seems like everybody writes books about either LA or New York, so I had a lot of selection for New York in my collection. I'm pretty sure I know which one I'm going to choose, but out of these 5, whichever one I get to first is what I get to first. The first one is Lillian Boxfish Takes a Walk by Kathleen Rooney. Next, Breakfast at Tiffany's by Truman Capote. Brooklyn by Colum Toibin. Real Americans by Rachel Khong. Or The House of Mirth by Edith Wharton, which would actually be a reread for me. Next is Ohio, and I have chosen Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. Then for Oregon, I have chosen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Casey. For Pennsylvania, I've chosen The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride. Next, Rhode Island, I've chosen The Wedding People by Allison Esbach, and I've already read this and talked about it on my channel, so I'll link that up here below. So I'm going to consider Rhode Island finished. Rhode Island is right underneath Massachusetts, and I'm in Rhode Island all of the time, so I know it fairly well, and The Wedding People did a great job setting it in the Newport area of Rhode Island. The next 2 states that I've been to, I do not have selections for, so help me out with this. And that would be Tennessee and Texas. I am in Tennessee every year to visit my partner's parents, and I'm in Texas quite often for work because my current place of employment has a Texas office. So I go down there every now and again. But I don't have any book selections for either of those states, so help me out. And last of the states that I have visited is Vermont, and I have chosen We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. I'm pretty sure this is set in Vermont. I don't know if it's specifically mentioned, but according to the research that I did, it's presumed that this story is set in Vermont. So I'm going with it. All right, so let's talk about the states that I have not visited yet. The first one being Alabama. And I've chosen Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe by Fanny Flagg. I just reread this a couple of months ago, so I'm considering Alabama complete. Even though I haven't visited it yet, I have read a story set there. I haven't talked about it on my channel yet, but I think I will pretty soon. I've enjoyed Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe, and I love the movie with Kathy Bates and Jessica Tandy. It's one of my favorite movies. So Alabama is done. Next is Alaska, and I've chosen The Call of the Wild by Jack London. I'm pretty sure a portion of this takes place in Alaska. I do believe it's mainly set in the Canadian area up there, but I do think a portion of it is in Alaska. If I'm wrong, let me know, and if you know of any Alaskan books, let me know as well. Next is Arkansas. I have two options for Arkansas. The first being I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou, and that is nonfiction. And I'm pretty sure that Angelou spent a portion of her childhood in Arkansas, so that's why I've picked that. And then next would be True Grit by Charles Portis. I do believe this at least starts out in Arkansas. I don't know if the entire story is set there, but at least I'm pretty sure a portion of it is in Arkansas. Next is California. And like I said, everybody writes about either LA or New York. So I had a ton of books set in California, but I decided that California for me is complete because I just read in 2024, Slow Days, Fast Company, The World, the Flesh, and LA by Eve Babbitt. And like I said, I'm considering this done. I read it a couple of months ago. I did already talk about it on the channel. So California is finished, even though, okay, well, technically I have visited California, but I was there for work. I was there for barely 24 hours. I saw nothing but my hotel and my office. So I am considering California not complete that I visited because I didn't see anything. I just flew in, gave a presentation, and I flew out. Does not count, in my opinion. But I did read about California, so that is complete. Next is Colorado, and I've chosen The Song of the Lark by Willa Cather. Delaware, I've chosen The Most by Jessica Anthony. For Georgia, I have three options. I have Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil by John Berendt. Is that how you say it, John Berendt? The Magic All Around by Jennifer Mormon. And The Heart is a Lonely Hunter by Carson McCullers. I don't know which one I'll get to first. If you've read any of those, let me know. See which one I should pick up first. For Hawaii, I've chosen Unfamiliar Fishes by Sarah Vowell, which is a nonfiction book. For Idaho, I have two options. I have Educated, a memoir by Tara Westover, which is nonfiction. And I also have Idaho by Emily Ruskovich. And I'm assuming that since the book is titled Idaho, it's set in Idaho. Next is Indiana. I've chosen The Magnificent Ambersons by Booth Tarkington. I believe this won a Pulitzer in like the early 20s or something, so that's why I've chosen it, and I do believe it's the only book that I have in my collection set in Indiana. Next is Iowa, and I've chosen Gilead by Marilyn Robinson. I'm hoping to visit Iowa in the next couple of years. My partner actually grew up in Iowa, even though we go to Tennessee every year to visit his parents. His parents are from Iowa. They only moved to Tennessee when my partner was in college. So my partner's not from Tennessee. He's actually from Iowa. And he has not been back home to Iowa in many, many years, and I've never seen it. So hopefully we can go out there and maybe see some family. Next is Kansas, and I've chosen In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. For Kentucky, I've chosen The Giver of Stars by Jojo Moyes. For Maryland, I've chosen Frederick Douglass, Prophet of Freedom by David W. Blight. This is nonfiction, and Douglass was enslaved in Maryland before escaping, so that's why I have chosen that. For Michigan, I have three options. I have Tom Lake by Ann Patchett, The Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison, or The Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Eugenides. For Minnesota, I've chosen Main Street by Sinclair Lewis. For Mississippi, basically anything by William Faulkner will cover it. He was very well known for writing about and set in Mississippi. So, The Sound and the Fury, As I Lay Dying, Sanctuary. I have all three of those. So whichever one I get to first, I get to first. For Missouri, I've chosen Stoner by John Williams. For Nebraska, something by Willa Cather. She was very well known for writing about Nebraska, and it could be either O Pioneers or My Antonia. I've never read Willa Cather. I literally have up there, I have a good portion of those up there are all Willa Cather. So I really hope that I like her because I have pretty much all of her collection. For New Mexico, I have three options. I have Ceremony by Leslie Marmon Silko. I have Death Comes for the Archbishop by Willa Cather. And I have Housemaid of Dawn by N. Scott Momaday. For North Carolina, I have The Wright Brothers by David McCullough, and that is nonfiction about the Wright brothers. For North Dakota, I do not have any selections in my collection for that state. I do believe Louise Erdrich writes about North Dakota. Correct me if I'm wrong. And if you have read any of her books set in North Dakota, let me know which one I should pick up. Or any other author or book that you have read set in North Dakota is something that I have not read about, and I don't have anything in my collection. For Oklahoma, I've chosen, I have two options, either Paradise by Toni Morrison, which would actually be a reread for me, or Where the Heart Is by Billy Letts. Again, that would be a reread for me, but because those books, it's been so long since I've read both of them, they probably would be brand new stories for me. The next two, I do not have selections. So South Carolina and South Dakota. So let me know if you've read any of these books in those states. And maybe in the next couple of years, I can add them to my collection. For Utah, I've chosen Moon Palace by Paul Auster. I think a portion of this book is set in Utah, maybe not the whole thing. But if you have any Utah recommendations, please let me know. For Virginia, I've chosen The Known World by Edward P. Jones. For Washington State, I do not have any selection for Washington. So please let me know if you have anything to recommend. For Washington, D.C., I've chosen Heartburn by Nora Ephron. For West Virginia and Wisconsin, I don't have any selections, so please let me know. West Virginia, Wisconsin, any books set in those states? And then last of the states that I have not yet visited is Wyoming, and I have chosen The Virginian by Owen Wister. I think it's kind of funny that a book set in Wyoming is called The Virginian, so I'm assuming that this Virginian guy comes from Virginia and moves to Wyoming. I don't know, but I have it in my collection. It's set in Wyoming, and it's called The Virginian. Okay, so that is it. That is a lot of books and a lot of states. More states that I have not visited than visited. And so, yeah, we got a lot of selections here. There are many states that I don't have any selections. So please let me know what you recommend. And this is going to take the next 4.5, 5 years to finish. So who the heck knows what's going to happen? I could change my mind on any of these books. I could get new books. Who the heck knows? But I think that this is going to be a fun little project. I really want to visit all 50 states before I turn 50. And it helps to learn about or get the feel of the location that you are visiting. So that is it. Let me know what you think. Have you visited all 50 states? Have you read any of these books? What are your recommendations? Let me know. I want to hear from you. Thanks again for joining, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.